Over the years, there have been thousands upon thousands of fake characters, Easter eggs, and most of all, hoaxes surrounding the Five Nights at Freddy's lore and fan base. However, there's quite a bit of hoaxes that I'm sure you have forgotten about. After all, the game is well over 10 years old at this point, so I'm sure a lot of the original stuff that came out in the first year is soon to be forgotten. While you may know some of the more popular ones out there, I'm willing to bet there's actually a few in here that you don't remember, and for some of you, this will feel pretty nostalgic. As I said in my previous videos, I like to dive into year one of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is the year 2014 whenever it released, and there was a lot that happened in that year, starting most notably with some of these hoaxes that you may have forgotten. There are so many hoaxes that I might not even be able to fit them all in this one video. So go ahead and get comfortable, grab yourself some popcorn, and let's look into some of the more forgotten hoaxes in Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, we're going to start out with one of the more popular ones there is, and that is who caused the bite of 87. If you live under a rock and aren't familiar with the original game's Night 1 phone call, let me clue you in.
But then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe.
The bite of 87. That statement went unknowingly completely flipped the entire Five Nights at Freddy's world upside down. There were so many questions to go along with this statement. The biggest one being, who caused the bite of 87? Now understand this, in the early days of Five Nights at Freddy's, especially the first game, you didn't have a lot of people to choose from. As a matter of fact, we only knew 6 characters. The 4 main animatronics, Golden Freddy, and Phone Guy. So we didn't have a lot of people to choose from. It more than likely wasn't Phone Guy because, well, he's a human, and there's no way a human could have bitten off a child's frontal lobe. But easily, hands down, the biggest animatronic that got the most blame was Foxy. And for the sole reason of, he's the only animatronic that is out of order. Whenever you flip onto the Pirates Cove camera, you see Foxy tucked away, and in his sign it says out of order. And a lot of people speculated that that was the reason why. And why not? I mean, the only animatronic that's not functioning properly, I mean, of course he would have caused a bite of 87. And like I said, there wasn't a lot of characters to choose from. However, when you look at Foxy's entire character design, you kind of get a feeling that he wasn't the cause of it. First and foremost, his jaw is still absolutely on properly. And I'd imagine biting into a child's head would have caused a little bit of damage to the animatronic itself. Not to mention that Foxy's entire body had looked like it had gone through a tornado prior to entering the building. He was a very beat up animatronic, and there was a pretty good reason why he was out of order, because he just simply was not functioning properly. Now, obviously to this day, we know who caused the bite of 87, but back in 2014, nobody knew. And the biggest blame was Foxy. And not long after this, it was quickly debunked. Now, this next one is a very nostalgic one, and you had to have been deep in Fnaf whenever it first released to know what I'm talking about. If you've ever seen this picture before, which I'm sure you have, whenever you download the Five Nights at Freddy's game, this is the icon that comes on the screen whenever you download it. But whenever you look deeper into the picture, it looks more than just Freddy's face. If you enhance the brightness on it, you could see a green, what looks like handprint on the top of Freddy's head. A lot of people assumed that this handprint was the handprint of a child, presumably the one that maybe had gotten the bite of 87, or the child that's possessing the animatronic character. Not to mention, at the bottom of Freddy's chin, we also saw something else that was green in the bottom right corner, but nobody really knew what this was. Originally, like I said, a lot of people thought that it was a child's handprint, but when you look deeper into it, this handprint only has 4 fingers on it. I'm pretty sure people have 5 fingers. A lot of people started speculating that this actually wasn't a child, and maybe this was just something that Scott Cawthon left in there to mess with our heads. And people started speculating that this was the killer of all the animatronics that put his hand on there and was trying to put this on when he was stuffing the children into there. Wrong. Not even close. We don't really know what this handprint is, but I can assure you, it is not William Afton's handprint. It's not Purple Guys. It's not Phone Guys. We don't know who it belongs to still to this day, but I can promise you this, it wasn't a child, and it was not a handprint from the killer. So that was debunked. Now, this next hoax was wildly insane and was actually made by the game theorist himself, Matthew Patthew. And in this hoax, he describes that the Five Nights at Freddy's game is actually based off of real-life events of a shooting that happened in a Chuck E. Cheese. In this hoax, you work as Mike Schmidt.
Hi.
Which is true and accurate to the game. You work as the night shift who was formerly fired during the day shift for having a weird odor and to get revenge on your ex-coworkers by coming back and killing 5 children and stuffing them all to animatronic suits. However, Mike was caught on the security cams doing this and was sentenced to death for his crimes, and that we are now taking on this reoccurring nightmare that he's stuck in the pizzeria being haunted by the kids that he killed and only being able to use the camera system in order to defend them away. This is a wild theory slash hoax, and obviously is nowhere near true. And it just goes to show you that every rose has its thorns, and even for a game theorist like Matthew Patthew, this was nowhere near the case. Now, this next hoax was actually a very popular one, and it spawned not long after the game had released. Have you ever seen this image right here of something that looks like, I don't know, a different animatronic character peeping through the little employees only door? If you have seen this image, then I'm sure you're familiar with Sparky the dog. This rumor spread like wildfire in the early days of Fnaf as people were genuinely believing that Sparky the dog was an actual hidden character in Five Nights at Freddy's. It first appeared on Tumblr and was listed as Sparky the dog, and the only image that was shown was this one right here. However, it was deemed fake as the Tumblr users Cody Bear and Najian, sorry for butchering the names, were all screenshots that were photoshopped by them. However, this did not stop other fan creators from making more fan art or photoshopping more Sparky in the game, and eventually Sparky ended up making it into one of the FNAF games, or more recently, FNAF in Real Time, and even going as far as to kind of being a canon character, as he was featured in behind the scenes for the actual Five Nights at Freddy's movie. So I guess Sparky got a little bit more traction than the two creators had anticipated. And you can see right here in this screenshot, Sparky is definitely in the original Five Nights at Freddy's movie that came out a couple years ago. So congrats to the creators of him. Now, this next hoax was definitely a little bizarre, and that was Foxy was not evil. And the reason people came up with this was because Foxy's the only animatronic that when he jump scares you, he just peeks his head into your office. He doesn't attack you, and the only way that you die is from a heart attack. Obviously, this is incredibly far-fetched and nowhere near the truth, as why would Foxy be running down the hallway just to check up on a human being doing their job and not kill them? He's just going to check up on him, ask how he's doing, and return back to Pirate's Cove? That's what was supposed to happen? Yeah, obviously this was debunked not long after it was came out. Now, I'm sure at this point you've all heard of Phone Guy, and when FNAF originally came out, the fan base had 2 main characters that were their favorites, Golden Freddy and Phone Guy, for the reasons being that they are mysterious and we don't know the entire backstory behind the both of them. Golden Freddy pops up in your office randomly and jump scares you, and we don't see an endoskeleton or anything connected to him, and Phone Guy calls you throughout the first 4 nights before eventually dying. We have no information regarding the backstory of either one of them, so it made sense that they were as popular as they were. But a lot of people theorized that the Phone Guy was actually the killer that stuffed all the children into the animatronic suits. People believe this because at the end of the 4th night, as we know, Phone Guy ends up getting killed, and a lot of people speculated that that was the animatronic stuffing him into a suit as a way to get revenge for what he did to them. Now, obviously, this was completely debunked and not even remotely close to the case. Still to this day, we don't know what happened to Phone Guy in the original game. All we know is that he's dead, and he definitely was not the reason behind the murders at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The next one surrounding Phone Guy was that he is Golden Freddy, and his body was stuffed inside the Golden Freddy suit, and he's the reason why you see "It's me" written all over the wall. Only human voice that you hear throughout the game. Obviously, not even remotely true, because Golden Freddy doesn't even have an endoskeleton, so that would quickly erase anything of him being a part of that suit. Second of all, Golden Freddy appears in Night 2, Whenever you see Markiplier's original gameplay, that was the first night he had ever appeared. And Phone Guy was still alive for 2 more nights giving you calls, so there's no way that he'd be able to give you a phone call from the dead and then re-die a couple nights later. That just wouldn't make any sense, even for FNAF standards. This hoax was that Phone Guy was actually stuffed inside of Chica's suit, and the reason a lot of people were believing this was that whenever you see Chica up and close on this camera, you could see what looks to be like some teeth in the center part of the animatronic. Well, this does kind of similarly look like human teeth, but it's actually not the case, as this is the endoskeleton that's inside of Chica. We see the actual endoskeletons on both sides of Freddy in one of the promotional pictures that came out, and it's clear that those teeth that we see in Chica are actually just her endoskeletons. So this was debunked. I'm sure at some point in time you have seen this image before. The animatronics on the show stage looking directly back at you in the camera. This actually isn't featured in the game. It's a real image, don't get me wrong, but it was never featured in the game, and a lot of people speculated that this was one of the first indicates of the Mandela effect in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Scott Cawthon himself confirmed that this was not featured in the game, and if you play through the entirety of the game, you're not going to find this image. That didn't stop a lot of people, however, from proclaiming that they had seen this in some of the earlier playthroughs of the game. However, no footage was shown of this picture ever coming up in a single night of any of the original playthroughs. It was featured in the trailer, but it was a lot darker. This image is clearly more bright and looks like it'd be featured in the game. The thing that this came from was actually the game's files. This was hidden deep within the game's files. It was an unused image that was supposed to be in the game, but for some reason Scott ended up removing it from there. But a lot of people still proclaim that they ended up seeing this in the finished product game, which is pretty crazy. And finally, the very last hoax, if you could even call this one a hoax, is probably the silliest one of them all, and that is that Freddy Fazbear is a girl. Now, this is very far-fetched and kind of stupid. Not the fact that they think it's a girl, but for the reason why. You see, when Freddy is moving around, he tends to hide in very dark places. He likes to stay in the shadows. Well, one place he ends up hiding is the women's bathroom on this cam. So people speculated because he was hiding out in there that he's a girl. Really? That's just so stupid, honestly. That's gonna do it for the original Five Nights at Freddy's hoaxes. However, there was a lot more to go around in the second game, and we're gonna jump right into that right here. Kicking off, we have is probably the biggest one out there, and that is the Purple Guy jump scare. Unbeknownst to the FNAF community at the time, but Purple Guy being introduced in the second Five Nights at Freddy's was one of the biggest characters amongst the entire franchise, as he is the main antagonist for the terrible events that happen throughout the storyline. He's literally the main reason why this series even exists, but we didn't know that at the time, and a lot of people speculated that there was a Purple Guy appearance in-game outside of the minigames, and there was even a video that was titled the Purple Guy Jump Scare, and in this video it showed what seems to be like a smaller stick figure like Purple Guy getting a jump scare at you. Not long after this, there was an image that released that looked like Purple Guy that was in front of the Golden Freddy animatronic, sitting in the same direction, but this time wielding a knife and even going as far as adding a whole separate jump scare into the game. However, not long after these videos had spiked in popularity, it came out that they were actually fake, as whenever you were to complete the game and do Ultimate Custom Night, you wouldn't see Purple Guy mentioned in anywhere, and Scott Cawthon himself also came out and claimed that Purple Guy is not actually in this game, and this is a completely fake depiction of the character. However, he is in the minigames, but there is no in-game footage of him actually in there. This next hoax actually comes from the trailer of the second game, and even connects to one of the hoaxes from the original one. If you listen to the London Bridges song in reverse, you could hear what sounds like Mike Kill All. A lot of people speculated that Mike Schmidt, who you play in the original game, was a killer that actually ended up stuffing all the children inside of the animatronic suits, and that's why they were coming after to get him. Well, in this one, this hoax got even bigger because of a lot of people hearing what they thought said Mike Kill All in here, proclaiming that Mike Schmidt was actually the killer all along. Obviously, this turned out not to be the case whatsoever. We do know the actual killer of the game right now, and it's definitely not Mike Schmidt. And the whole thing of the song in reverse was never even meant to happen. Scott Cawthon is very good in attention to detail, but not that damn good. This next one is actually based off of a really popular character in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. If you've ever been very deep into the game, you probably remember Shadow Bonnie. This was a very rare character that would appear in the top left part of your screen periodically throughout the later parts of the night. He's a very rare character to come by, however, he is still in the game. And him being in the game, a lot of people speculated that he wasn't the only Shadow one out there, and that was true. There was Shadow Freddy that would appear in your office, but a lot of people speculated that there was actually a Shadow Balloon Boy that would only appear in the mobile port of the second Five Nights at Freddy's game. You see right here in this image showing that somebody took a screenshot of Shadow Balloon Boy appearing in their game. Now, obviously, this is nowhere near the truth. There's only 2 Shadow animatronics in here, but this was actually a very, very popular hoax at the time, and a lot of people believed that it was true. Because Shadow Bonnie was such a popular character, they believed that he was not the only Shadow animatronic that was featured in the game, but a lot of people seem to forget that Shadow Freddy existed, as he was a very unpopular character. So, the Shadow Balloon Boy was completely debunked. Now, this next hoax is a little far-fetched, and really isn't that big a deal, but it's that the Chica moved the Paper Pals. If you look at these 2 images right here, you can see Toy Chica and Withered Chica sitting right next to the Paper Pals. But whenever you look at Withered Chica's, the one all the way to the left, the pink one, is missing. But whenever Toy Chica is standing on the side of it, it's right there. And a lot of people speculated that these 2 animatronics were taking some of the Paper Pals with them and periodically moving them around throughout the cameras. And you could see why a lot of people had assumed that, because they were the only 2 animatronics that sat that damn close to the wall. So I'm assuming that they'd be the only ones to really be able to move it. But a lot of people also speculated that whenever they would put the camera down, they would see the Paper Pal pop up in their office, pretty much saying that one of the Chicas ended up grabbing it, specifically the withered one, and just propped it up in your office. Now, I'm not so sure why that would even happen. The Paper Pals really don't have any resemblance whatsoever to the characters or the storyline throughout the game, and I understand that there wasn't a lot of knowledge for the game way back in 2014, but this just seems a little far-fetched and doesn't make any sense for Scott Cawthon to actually put it in the game. This next one is from one of the many endoskeletons that are in the game, and this one claims that there was a endoskeleton jump scare. If you look at sometimes throughout the prize counter camera, you will see an endoskeleton appear to stand up in the room. Now, we're not fully sure what endoskeleton this is specifically for. A lot of people presume it to be Foxy's endoskeleton. We don't know, but he ends up moving around. And there was actually a cut sound effect of his movements throughout the vents. Well, he does make his way to the vents in real time, but he never appears in your office. People were speculating that there was an actual jump scare made for this endoskeleton and that he'd be a reason to kill you, but as it turns out, that was completely false. While Endo 02 is in the game for those 2 cameras, the entire movement thing was completely removed from the game, and not only that, there was never a jump scare that was made for the animatronic. He cannot kill you. I don't know what his purpose is in this game. Maybe it was just like a little Easter egg character for Scott Cawthon to add in just to do it, but either way, he cannot harm you, and he, most of all, cannot kill you, but that didn't stop a lot of people from making these fake jump scare videos. If you are a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, at least in the fan community games, I'm sure you're very well of who Sugar the Cat is from Five Nights at Candy's. Well, a lot of people speculated that Sugar was actually in the second Five Nights at Freddy's game. If you look at the prize counter camera and you turn the flashlight on, sometimes you can see what looks like a silhouette of a cat sitting on the side of there, but as it turns out, this was just a silhouette. Sugar the Cat was not featured in this game whatsoever. He was featured in a fake Five Nights at Freddy's game that I had talked about in a previous video, but he was not in any of the mainline story games. And the biggest theory of them all was that Five Nights at Candy's wasn't released until July 18th of 2015, whereas the second Fnaf game was released in November of 2014. So there had been no way for Sugar the Cat to have made an appearance in this game if he hadn't even been created yet, and it's not one of Scott Cawthon's characters. This last hoax I'm going to talk about in this video was the puppet appearing on the TV screen and the plush animatronics that sit on your office table being possessed. There was this image that surfaced online which showed all the little puppets that you get on your desk all to have black eyes with white dots in the middle of them, while also having the puppet's face appear on every single TV that was in the room. Apparently this was a rare Easter egg that you would surface person. I don't know how you would have unlocked it, but if you were to unlock it, all the toys in your little desk will be possessed, as well as the puppet taking over for every single TV in here. I didn't know if it had any effect on you in game or if it actually ended up killing you. Those details were not released, and we still to this day don't know where exactly this image came from. However, not long after it was released, it was quickly debunked, as this is not an Easter egg that you find actually in the game. I know I said the other one was the last one, but this is the last one. This one is Balloon Girl. In the game, you have Balloon Boy, who comes throughout the vents and is originally turned over here just to take your flashlight batteries out. But there was an image that surfaced online of what looked like Balloon Boy's face, but with the pink hat and pink eyeballs that was appearing underneath your desk, and a lot of people speculated that this was Balloon Boy's sister, or what they like to call it, Balloon Girl. However, this was the only image that we got to see in this game was from right here. They were to appear later on in a different video game in Fnaf World, but in the second Five Nights at Freddy's, this is all we got from them. And while this was somewhat of a main character, they would cause no harm to you, and unlike Balloon Boy, they didn't take your batteries out and had no way to help the animatronic characters killing you. So this character was quickly debunked and pretty much just forgotten about. And that's going to do it for today's video. I'm just a little bit over 20 minutes long, and I don't want to take too much of y'all's time. I do appreciate you guys watching the video, though. I will make a whole nother video as pretty much a direct sequel to this video, talking about many more hoaxes, because believe me when I tell you, there are a lot more to go around, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have forgotten. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're interested in this content. Leave a like, comment down below what you want me to do next, and I'll see you on the next one.